it's the case that the deeper you go, the more you understand, the deeper you go into the art form, the more enjoyable it becomes. So education in classical music is really important in a way that I don't think it necessarily is for more popular genres. So education is key.
The future of music. How is music and innovation going to work together?
I'm not a believer in the idea that music, and especially classical music, is dying. I don't subscribe to that idea at all. I think that music is changing, and the way we attract our audiences and engage with our audiences has to change, should change. But I think if we get that right, there is a huge public waiting for us.
Who decides what is right and what is wrong in music direction?
I think that if no one comes to a concert, we've got it wrong. So I think it's for us to think about how we engage our audience, how we present music at the highest possible standard, because I think that's what it comes down to. If we present music really well with exciting programs and we educate an audience about what they can expect and how this music is to be enjoyed, then I think we can only win.
Changing concerts, does that mean more event, more sparkling colors and have everything easier so even the most uneducated person can understand, or is it different?
I think that's a really good question. Answering backwards, I think education is a really interesting one, because people who are great music fans, classical music fans, will know that one of the best things about classical music is that the deeper you go, and actually for a lot of the high arts, it's a horrible phrase, but it's the case that the deeper you go, the more you understand, the deeper you go into the art form, the more enjoyable it becomes. So education in classical music is really important in a way that I don't think it necessarily is for more popular genres. So education is key. The first question, do we need to dumb down the music in order to draw people in? No, I don't think so. I think at the centre should be a real proud integrity of what classical music is and can become. But I think there is a conversation to be had about what I call the sort of barrier between performer and audience. Because that, for people who have not been to a concert before, can be a literal barrier, it can be a hindrance. And I think we should experiment with breaking down that barrier and it being a more human, natural exchange.
We often have in music universities still the thinking, okay, you can become a great star soloist. If it's not enough for that, you can still be a choral singer. And if it doesn't even have enough for that, you can still be a music teacher. Do something against this graduation, which is totally...
It's totally false. And on the inside of the industry, we know that it's totally false. Those three things which you've described, a solo career, a choral career, and a teaching career, they need completely different focuses and talents and temperaments. And it's not a qualitative decline. Rather, it's for each musician to find where their skill set best leads them. And one of the things that we try to do in the Schola is to teach and practice the skills that a choral singer needs, which you don't learn in a solo, in Sologesang, in a solo studium, in a solo study. Of course, for choral singers, it's very important to have a very technically solid grounding, to have a good round, colourful voice. Of course, that's important. But the other things which you need to be a choral singer, you can only learn in practice, and that's what we try and offer via the Schola scheme.
when you are a good choral singer, is there opportunities to go into the other directions? We will see in the concert now that you can still be a soloist, and also that you can still take the responsibility of teaching about your role as a choral singer.
Yeah, I think there is something in common across all of those different areas. The commonality is you need to be able to sing in a healthy, technically secure way with an understanding of text and a desire to express yourself. All of these things are skills which go across, and there are many people who manage to do more than just one of those things. In the radio choir we have people who work often as soloists, but they will say that they sing in a slightly different way in the choir as to when they're singing solo. You can do both, but you have to be conscious of how you change your approach in both of those situations.
In how far is a professional choir a role model for many, many, many amateur choirs and even singers who say, okay, I only do it once a year under the Christmas tree and maybe under the shower and maybe in the elevator, but I don't want to join that music community. Still, I like it. I more than tolerate it.
It's a really good question, because this difference between professional and amateur is on the one hand a very, very important difference to me. On the other hand, I know that when I started off doing music, it was a hobby for me. For all of us, it was a hobby. You know, when we're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, when we're very young and we start playing the piano or we start singing, we don't do it because we're suddenly professionals. We do it because we've discovered a love for that hobby. And we are very, very lucky that we managed to turn that hobby into a way of life and into a profession. So there is a long historical link for all of us between those two things. And I think it's very dangerous to lose that initial reason for doing this job, even when we've been doing it through our careers. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, the difference, being a professional musician, is that we have an obligation to the profession and to our colleagues and to the music to perform it at the highest quality we possibly can. We are obliged to look after our voice as our instrument, to practice regularly, to learn our music before we come to rehearsal. All of these things are an obligation for us because we have been lucky enough to turn this into our profession.
Is networking something that is becoming more important also in the music world?
Probably. I think it's becoming... It's big in everyone's consciousness because of the ease of communication, I think, in the electronic age. I think it's sort of natural because a lot of music making is collaborative. So of course you're looking to make connections with people. There's a sort of self-publicity thing which I don't really enjoy personally, but I think that for a lot of people it is necessary because of the amount of competition there is. So maybe it's inescapable.
You will soon be going to the Netherlands, coming from England, now being in Berlin with one of the most, say, significant or important choirs in Germany, now going to Hilversum. What is the draw of your path? Is that by chance that you're going there, or is that a purpose behind that?
Well, the move from the UK to Europe was quite a conscious decision. There is a sort of seriousness, especially in Germany, with which classical music is taken and funded. So it really goes it goes in all directions. The person on the street and also the politicians who make the decisions about arts funding. There's a real seriousness of purpose that classical music attracts in Germany, which attracted me here. And that has a real noticeable effect on things like the amount of rehearsal time that one can afford. It's wonderful to have a bit more time on projects. That brought me to Germany, and that sort of introduced me to this circuit of radio choirs. And that's one that I really enjoyed because, as you know, the radio choir thing is one where every week you're doing something different. It's a very flexible, varied job, and one which gives real stability to the singers who are part of it. So I wanted to stay in that world. The Chief Conductor position in Hilversum is a great position for me. Get on really well with the choir, Lots and lots of potential. So it was a very easy decision when that offer came.
Is a radio choir different to, say, an opera choir or a concert choir?
A radio choir is certainly different from an opera choir because it has to be more flexible in the repertoire it's able to sing. So it will sing opera, but it will also sing lots of concerts. Most radio choirs engage quite heavily in new music as well, so a sort of speciality for contemporary repertoire. But really this flexibility of sound, that one week you're doing early music, the next it's Verdi Requiem, the next it's a Puccini opera. This flexibility of repertoire and of sound is, I think, one of the most important things about the radio choir setup, especially the big radio choirs. So here in Berlin we have 63 full-timers, similar size in Hilversum.
Is flexibility in music and in repertoire, is that something that leads us back to the idea of what's music going to be in the future like?
I think the variety has always been there. I think it's a really important part of the Scholar programme that people realise that coming from their opera studies, it's not enough just to be able to sing that repertoire as a choral singer. If you want to be a professional opera soloist, fine, because you normally sit in your Fach, in your niche, in your repertoire, great. If you want to do choral singing, you have to it's fine to be better at one thing than the other, but you have to be able to turn your hand to many different styles. And I think that's something that the Scholar is appreciating in this week.